Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Look at this. Now, this is a scholar. He shows up with his own book.
I had to bring my Constitution, the Articles of Confederation, the Federalist Papers, the Declaration. I got it all here. We're ready.
That's awesome. Well, now, how does a guy get, what's your background? How did you get so excited about the Constitution? When did that happen?
I'm a first-generation American. My family came here from Switzerland in 1949. My mother was 9 years old, told by their parents that they were going to have one suitcase. They loaded up the suitcase, and they came to America, didn't speak a lick of English. They wanted an opportunity to relish in the idea of freedom. And so I grew up in a home that debated these ideas. We cherished the ideas, and it was something that we were dedicated to. And so it was something that I grew up in.
Wow. So they just said, pack a suitcase, and go to America.
Yep.
Probably full of, let me guess, full of Army knives.
Swiss Army knives.
That's what I would have brought. I'm sorry, that was sad. I'm still in shell shock from the top 10 list. Well, tell us a little bit. I know you go around the country. Do you
Yes.
go around the state? You're talking about the Constitution. So have at it. This is your willing audience.
Well, I was a prosecutor for 12 years with the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, and while I was working as a prosecutor, I was also teaching as an adjunct professor out at two of the colleges here in the Phoenix area. And I got a call one day simply saying, we'd love you to have you come out and speak, talk a little bit about what it is that you know. Went out there, and it just created kind of a groundswell effect, and it was within just a year or two I began traveling the country talking about these ideas that I so strongly believe in. And that's the American Academy for Constitutional Education. We started officially about 4 years ago. And it really is just about teaching liberty, American exceptionalism, and the dangers of abandoning our charters of freedom, that of the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. And I believe those ideas are worth defending. And those are the things as we go out onto the high schools, onto the college campuses, working with grassroots organizations, even those in politics. We believe these ideas are worth defending. We have the oldest Constitution in the world, and I think that's for good reason. I mean, think about this for a second. Brazil has had 8 constitutions since 1822. Afghanistan has had 5 in the 20th century alone. Poland, 7 since 1923. Russia, 4 since 1917. France has had 15 since R1. Ours has survived the test of time, and I think it's for a reason that we've forgotten about. And you on your top 10 list, you talked about 5 of the protections outlined in the First Amendment. More individuals can name the 5 members of the Simpson family than can name the 5 protections outlined in the First Amendment. And more individuals in America can name the 3 judges on American Idol than can name even 3 of the 5 protections. And I think that tells us where our priorities are. Wow. I want to help it reignite this spirit of liberty and really restore this nation back to these foundational ideas.
Wow, isn't that sad? Homer, Marge, Bart, Lisa, and Simon.
I wouldn't know.
That was an American Idol guy. Well, that's awesome. And you know what? You hear the passion from just the people in this room. I think we all feel guilty that we're not doing our part. So that's where you come in. Yeah,
and really that's really what it's about is as I travel, I know there are some preconceived notions about what I stand for. I mean, any organization that would call themselves the American Academy for Constitutional Education, you're going to have some preconceived notions about what we stand for. And it's been really a lot of fun to transcend politics. I'm not interested in politics. I'm interested in what the issue is, and the issue is, are we going to follow the rules? And the rule book is found in the Constitution. And we have so many individuals in this country that have set it aside for purposes of moving an agenda forward. And so I will ask these 3 questions, very simple questions. Do you want to be told what to do? I have never met, in the tens of thousands of people that I've spoken to, I've never met someone who's raised their hand and says, you know what, I really do want to be told what to do. I think government knows how to live my life better than I do. It's never happened. That's question number 1. Number 2 is, do you believe government should follow the rules? I never met someone that says, I don't believe government should follow the rules. That ignites the debate of what is the rule book. I want to have that debate. I want to talk about what the rule book says and whether or not we're following it. And then number 3 is, who believes they should be able to keep the fruits of their labor? That's what those 3 questions ultimately come down to America, the idea. That's what we're about, is being able to live a life as we see fit, the pursuit of happiness, ensuring that government does their fulfills their number one obligation, that of securing the rights of the people and ultimately allowing individuals to keep the fruits of their labor. That's the message, and that's what we're going to continue to push forward with.
So how is your message received when you, what's the youngest group of people that you normally talk to? Do you teach junior high? Do you talk to them? Or?
I've spoken to kindergartners all the way up to, you name it, 85, 90-year-old folks. So I spent a lot of time on the high school campuses. I spent a lot of time on the college campuses. And
when you're in the high schools and you're talking about this, what's the reaction?
The greatest reaction, the most frequent reaction is this. I was just down the street at a high school not too long ago. I had a student run down the hall after me after I was done. I spent 2 hours with him. She said this. She says, before you came in today, I knew nothing about what you were talking about. She says, why aren't we being taught these things?
Wow.
That was her reaction. And then she said this. She says, what do I need to do to dedicate my life to defending these ideas? That's the reaction. That's the typical reaction out on a high school campus. And remember, we're not talking politics. We're talking things like things that are relevant to them, because I believe that if you're going to ignite this spirit of liberty back into the American people, you've got to approach people where they're at. You've got to play by the rules of the culture, pop culture, whatever that may be. And so we want to reach out, for example, to the young people where they're at. What are they concerned about? Well, you got these kids out here driving their cars that potentially could be pulled over. Would you allow the police to search your car? You want to see kids get excited about the Fourth Amendment? Ask them that question. It's almost a 50-50 split when you walk into an auditorium of 300-400 kids and they're debating back and forth over whether or not they would allow a search. And I have to remind them, you're debating the Fourth Amendment. And they say, what's that? And I said, exactly what you're debating. Whether or not you should have that right to be left alone and determine whether or not you're going to disclose certain information. Or things like speech. Flag burning is a debate that I'll bring in because it allows a debate to happen. And so I'm not going in taking sides. I'm going in facilitating discussion that they probably never had before. And these kids get excited. They come up on stage, they argue with each other, and next thing you know, you got teachers out there arguing with their own students. This is exciting stuff, and this is bringing the idea of America to the classroom, and that's why we've just had so much fun doing this. We really have.
I want to tag along with you on a couple of these.
Absolutely.
It sounds fun. Well, that's awesome. Well, that's interesting. When you don't go at it from a political one side or the other, you just state the document. You just talk about what the framers had in mind, and that's what ignites everything.
And that's the important part. It's not about politics. It's about presenting both sides. When you take an issue like the Fourth Amendment or the Fifth Amendment or even the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, I want them to think about both sides. Talk about it. Let's have the debate. Let's not pursue an agenda. Let's have the debate. And then once you've heard both sides, you make the decision as to what the founders intended and what best will facilitate a free society. That's the debate we want to have.
Here's our first question. How does the school faculty react to your presentations?
We've got calls coming in on a weekly basis to bring us into public high schools and private high schools. The reaction is this. I just finished up a 6-day speaking tour in New Mexico. And I went into the first high school. We spoke to over 3,000 high school students during that time. And I had some of my staff members out in the foyer, and 2 teachers were talking. They said, this is ridiculous. This guy's coming here from Arizona. He's going to tell us about the Constitution. Well, we had a lot of fun because I had simply asked the students as a part of this 2-hour presentation whether we lived in a democracy or a republic. And most of the students said democracy, and I found out the textbook that they were studying from was called The Principles of Democracy. And so I spent time illustrating why we don't live in a democracy, what the difference is between a democracy and a Republican form of government, and why that's essential. And the next thing you know, the teachers are involved in the discussion, asking us to come back, asking us to be involved in what it is that their students are learning because we were facilitating that debate. And that was something that I think so often teachers aren't doing. They saw it happen, and I think it was motivating. So we've got principals that are very excited about bringing us in and allowing us to really have that discussion with the kids.
Now, you're based here in the Valley?
We're based in Chandler, yes.
That's awesome. We've got plenty. Oh, here's another question. How can I get you to my school, and is there a fee?
Well, we are a nonprofit organization. The American Academy for Constitutional Education is a 501c3, so it takes money to move the message, so we're always looking for donations. That's number one. But we will go into a school, any school that will have us. We will go in. We love the large auditorium-style settings, but we'll go classroom to classroom if that's needed. But absolutely, it's just a matter of talking with us, arranging a date, and making that happen.
That's awesome. I know you brought some stuff here. I'm kind of curious about.
Well, I don't know about you, Mark, but when I read the Constitution, is there a problem?
Yeah. I'm looking for the sprinkler system here.
I don't know about you, but I have 6 kids, and every Sunday night, Mark, we have what we call Constitution Night. Surprise, surprise. Constitution Night. And we had some kids in the neighborhood that my 14-year-old had invited over. And he said, Dad, teach them about the Constitution. And their friends are saying, let's go. I mean, really? So I took out my book. And now they won't leave me alone. Yeah. I am the coolest dad in the neighborhood, right there. Just good stuff.
That is awesome.
And that again, Mark, goes to this principle. If you've got to meet the culture where they're at. You walk into a high school, you walk into a junior high school, the kids are listening.
I'm guessing you don't have that in your carry-on when you fly somewhere.
Well, we are on TV. I won't mention it. I do travel with this, and there's some things that we have to make sure both sides are comfortable with to get that from point A to point B.
Oh, that's awesome. Any other questions? Yeah, I'm looking for, no, we got that one taken care of. What do you think is the one thing that is most misrepresented or misunderstood about the Constitution?
I think there's several things. I think that this idea of limited government. What does it mean when you say government is to be limited? In addition to that, this idea that the Constitution is one of positive powers. I think so often we think of the Constitution as one of negative powers. That is, government can do anything they want so long as the Constitution says they can't. No, that's not what the Constitution is about. The Constitution is one of positive powers only if the Constitution gives power to do something, and that power is specifically enumerated, can government do what it is that's outlined. And I think we've forgotten about that. We've said, wow, it sounds like a good idea, so government, go ahead and do it. That's not the idea. The idea is that you have these principles of federalism at play. You allow the federal government to do certain things, specific enumerated things, and those things not enumerated in the U.S. Constitution are left for the states to carry out with, to really fulfill those particular functions. And so I think we've forgotten about these principles of federalism. I also think that we've forgotten what it means to be free. Really what it means to be free. And I would say this is the challenge to everyone within my voice is this. What is your tolerance for freedom? And I think we can gauge our tolerance for freedom not by those things that we simply would allow to happen because we agree with. Our tolerance for freedom is found in our willingness to defend ideas that we might find despicable. That's freedom. The ability to allow individuals to do things that you might disagree with, that's a free society. And I think we've forgotten what it means to be free, and we use government force to try and accomplish an agenda to stop people from doing things that we disagree with. That's not freedom.
Well, here's a couple of great comments. I'm sure you have an online presence. What's your website address?
Couple of websites, AAFCE, that's AAF as in freedom, CE.com, that's our nonprofit, and then freedomfires.com, that's freedomfires.com, is also an educational website, yeah.
Freedom Fires.
There you go, Freedom Fires.
Cool. Well, here's a very pertinent question. As a country, are we too far away from these principles to ever get back?
No, but it's going to take a fight. And I think we're fighting 2 battles right now in this country. We're fighting an election cycle battle, which I think is important, but I think the more important battle that needs to be fought in America today is the cultural battle. The battle for the hearts and minds of the next generation. What is it? I mean, that's the biggest problem that I see, Mark, as I go into the schools, is that our young people don't know what it means to be an American. They can't articulate what it means to be a part of this country, a citizen of this country. We're being told that this country is just like anything else. No, America is unique, and it's exceptional in so many ways. We're innovative, we're creative. We have principles in the Constitution that are not just sound bites, things like equal protection under the law. It's not just a sound bite, it's something that individuals have given their lives to defend. And I think our young people, as well as the older generation, don't remember those things. And so these are the ideas that again, we've got to continue to push forward with. And I think as we do those things, as we reignite that spirit within ourselves, as we teach these things to our young people, as we engage in a debate as a culture, I think we're going to see that reawakening take place. It's going to take some time. I'm not going to suggest that it would take 2, 4, even 6 years. I think this is going to be a generational battle that's going to take place over the next 10, 20 years, but I think it can be won.
I'd say a lot of college kids know who Samuel Adams is. I think we've got some
Yes.
maybe on the other side of that wall. But yeah, it is sad that when you really break it down and start asking, I've asked, young people, or a lot of people of all ages, how many Supreme Court justices can you name?
Right.
And maybe 1 or 2. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, it is. And of course, we have 9 justices on the court. And I think when we look at elections, I think it's important for people to understand the presidential elections. There's a direct corollary to who those Supreme Court justices will be because the president ultimately appoints. So these are, long-term consequences that we're talking about because justices serve on the court for life subject to good behavior. Mark, can I show you? I was wondering if you smashed your foot on that yet.
No, I haven't.
You haven't smashed your foot.
I'm kind of frightened.
Should I grab that or you got that?
Please. Oh, yeah, here, I'll hand it to you. Well, you want that one first?
Yeah, give me the trap here.
All right. This is why I've been a little tentative back here.
So this is an illustration that we use as we travel. This is a beaver trap, a coyote trap. And oftentimes I'll do this with you, Mark. I had you sign the legal waiver before you came in. So why don't you go ahead and take that?
Yeah, let's just let you do that.
That's very simple, right?
Well, there you go. I could have done that.
Yes. So when we go out to the schools, for example, we engage the young kids with simple tools like this to illustrate the Constitution. And I would summarize the Constitution in this way. The Constitution is a complex maze of booby traps designed to stop tyranny in its tracks. The Constitution is a complex maze of booby traps designed to stop tyranny. And then the students will ask me, well, then why is there tyranny? Even the young kids recognize that there's something not quite right. And they'll ask me, why is there tyranny? And I will say, very simple. We're the ultimate guardians of the Constitution. If we, the people, don't care about that governing document, we in turn will elect individuals who don't care about the governing document. Those that we represent are a direct reflection of who we are. And until we begin to care about that document, other individuals that we elect necessarily won't care about that either. And so the only way that the Constitution, the rule of law, has teeth is if we, the people, give it teeth. And it was Thomas Jefferson who said, ignorance and freedom cannot coexist. So how can you defend freedom if you don't know what it is? And how can you defend the Constitution if you don't know what it is? That's the battle that's being fought here.
That's very cool.
Thank you.
I'm sure, and keep in mind, this is an audience that's, you're preaching to the choir here because these are small business people that know it's the fruits of their labor that they'd like to be able to keep. What a concept. I'm sure, anybody have any questions for Shane? If you got any questions, well, yes, sir. Just Dale, holler real loud so we can hear it.
When it comes to the Constitution and the rule of law, where does the czar thing come in? The last 6 years.
Let me repeat the question for those at home. With reference to the Constitution, we hear about a lot of czars that are appointed. How does that coexist?
Well, that goes right to the point that it's time to start following the rules. The Constitution outlines that the executive branch, outlined in Article 2 of the Constitution, can appoint members of its cabinet. But before appointing members of the cabinet, ultimately what has to happen is there has to be confirmation by the legislative branch, by the Senate specifically. So anytime there's appointments that are taking place, you have inherent checks that are established within that ruling document. And so if there is a president, whether it's now or in the past or in the future, that's appointing individuals to that cabinet to take care of certain responsibilities and obligations, it's important that we go through that process of following the rules.
Great question. What, any other questions here for Shane? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've got another question going back to your earlier guest. What do you think is the greatest breach right now of the Constitution?
Wow, where do we start? Where do we start? I will tell you one of the breaches that is most important to me, that I think rings true for all of us, is NSA. And I think what it is that governments decided that they're going to go ahead and have free access to our information. And I have this conversation with students out on campuses, and I'll ask them this question. I remember it wasn't too long ago where there was a lot of talk. I mean, you're talking about Edward Snowden and that sort of thing. And there was an individual in Congress who simply said, I don't have anything to hide. I'm not negotiating with terrorists. I'm not talking to terrorists. And I put up that video in my classroom. And I asked the students what their response was, and most of them says, he's right. I don't really care because I don't have anything to hide. And then I asked them this question: why don't you remove the curtains from your home? And they said, what are you talking about? I said, why don't you remove the curtains or the blinds from your home? They said, why would I do that? And I said, do you have something to hide? Do you have something to hide that motivates you to put curtains or blinds up on your home so other people can't see in? Suddenly it struck a chord with them. Right? The Fourth Amendment is not about defending things that are criminal in nature. It's about defending our right under the Fourth Amendment to decide when we're going to disclose information. That's what the Fourth Amendment's about. And I think when you look at NSA, I think that's one of the many. I could go on for quite some time, but I think NSA is one of those things. We see some things going on with respect to various scandals, and not to get into those details, but I think if you look at those scandals and you look at the text of the Constitution, we could resolve many of those issues, if not all of them, if we were following the rule book. But unless we have individuals that are willing to stand up and defend that rule book, they will continue on. And it doesn't matter if it's an R or a D or anybody else in the White House or in Congress. It's a matter of simply, do you understand the rule book? Do you understand the oath? And will you adhere to that oath?
Well, Shane, I know you could literally, because when you go to schools, you talk for a couple hours. I wish we had that kind of time. You can hang around?
I am.
I know you got a couple other things, and I feel good because they're not traps.
Yep.
What else what is this? I wasn't sure what this is.
Well, that's a piece of the Berlin Wall. I use this in class to literally talk about how I came to really understand why America was different. I was 30 miles south of the border. I was living in Germany in 1990 when they announced their reunification effort between West Germany and East Germany. The wall had come down the year before, and I remember holding this in my hand for the first time, being on that border and simply saying, if what they had to offer was so great, why do they lock these people in? It was a recognition that they didn't understand the foundational principles found in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. That was the ideal. And as I held this in my hand, standing on that border, everything came together for me as a young kid.
That's awesome. And I bet you if somebody wanted these, there's a way they could get those, couldn't they?
Yeah, this is a book that I've written about the Constitution. It's a line-by-line explanation of the Constitution. As you can see, I recognize it's a cultural battle. I am an attorney, but you probably couldn't tell by the book. It's relatively thin. It's the Constitution line by line, and we've had a lot of fun with this book and really equipped average Americans to really go out and engage the culture about these principles. So this has been a lot of fun as well.
That's great. Well, I think in 20 minutes, you've really hit home with these folks. I would encourage you, if you've got kids or grandkids or any school-age kids that would like to have Shane come and speak, hang around afterwards. Absolutely. And we'll figure out how to make that happen.
Sure.
How about a big round of applause, Mr. Shane Krauser?
Thank you.
Thanks, Shane. That was awesome. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.